Fantastic. Courtney,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm really good. I'm
Welcome
really
to
good.
Accounting
Thank
OS.
you. Thank you.
We wanted to talk to you about your business. So the structure of this conversation is going to be your background,
Yeah.
where you're from,
Yeah.
what you got into, how you got into accounting, how you got into bookkeeping,
Yeah.
why you got into it. Then we want to understand about your business,
Mm.
what technologies you deploy, how you hire people, and how you run your business.
Yeah.
And then finally, what you would impart onto our audience, bearing in mind that this is the audience of accountants, bookkeepers, people who want to understand how to hire the right people, what technology they should
Yeah.
implement, and then, hear from the
Yeah.
very best, such as
But
yourself.
first, what's your story? How'd you get into this
Oh my
field?
goodness. How long have we got? So I guess I grew up with my nan and grand and my mum, my sister in a small bungalow, in a place called Markfield, which is like northwest Leicestershire.
Yeah.
And I was a really good girl at school, but I didn't really have much of a father figure. So kind of it was my granddad, and then I took a lot of influence from my teachers as well. The teachers were always like, okay, work hard, go to university, that kind of thing. And that is very much the path I took. So I remember when I was 13, I started working at the equestrian centre. So very quickly, I was learning leadership skills, and I think within just a few months of working there, I then started working late night shifts, which is essentially the after school shift, so like from 3:30 to 9 o'clock. And what that would entail is getting all the horses ready, taking the money for the lessons, basically organising the yard, putting the horses to bed, that kind of thing. And I did that up until I was 18 when I left for then university. During that time though, I learnt a lot, and I think I had a very few difficult teenagers where there'd be like a few arguments at home, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I ended up living in a static caravan in the car park of that equestrian centre.
Wow.
So, and that was when I was going through A levels. So that was when I was about 17. So I was living on my own. I actually loved living on my own. But then I also had a big responsibility of the yard, because as soon as you started living there, then it's like, oh, people ask you for more favours because you're on site, basically. So yeah, I was dealing with that all throughout kind of school, really. And it'd be a case of, if somebody was off sick at the equestrian centre, I would go into the yard at 6 o'clock, sort out the horses for breakfast, and then I'd go to school, do a whole day of school, and then 3:30 my granddad would pick me up and he would take me to the stables, and I would get changed in the back of the car, ready to beat the 3:30 deadline.
My God.
So that was looking back, that was a bit of a weird experience, but it definitely shaped who I am today.
So why bookkeeping?
Yeah, why bookkeeping? Well, then I got into property after that. So halfway through uni, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and from that I basically got two things. I got either affiliate marketing, which I tried and I hated. I really did not like that. And then there was also property, but I was like, oh, you have to have lots of money to get into property.
Yeah.
So I ended up not liking the affiliate marketing, finding a couple of free seminars about property. And then I went down their sales funnel of, okay, the free seminars, then the 3-day course, and then the big course that you sign up to. Got myself a mentor and got my first property. Then I got another property. Now, that we can go into, that's a whole nother story in its own. And then bookkeeping wise, I realised my background was university in accounting and finance.
Yeah.
And throughout property, I was realising that people were borrowing angel investment money, and they were getting a bit stuck because they didn't have a very good idea of their numbers. And to actually, run the business, you need to know about your numbers.
Yeah.
So if you don't know about numbers, you can't make clear business decisions. So I was like, okay, let me kind of see what I can do, like help people, that kind of thing. And I was also worked in management accounting, and I was also finance business partner for some companies in the UK, some big companies in the UK. So I really kind of took it from that, and I was already doing tax returns for people just on the side. During university, I worked in a high street accountancy firm, predominantly doing self-assessment tax returns for individuals.
Yep.
So I just kind of took that. But the problem with doing that on the side was that happens once a year. It wasn't really a sustainable business unless you've got like hundreds of clients to sustain you all year round. Whereas bookkeeping was very much, okay, a monthly thing. And I felt like I'd add a lot more value because people didn't really see the value in bookkeeping until I delivered the work for them. And then suddenly I could be like, okay, well, you could save money here. You can save money here. Oh, you can increase your sales by this. Or even just doing a report where it separates the type of income they have. So now they can see where to invest more of their time and resources into one particular income stream rather than trying 5 that and only 4 of them actually, 4 of them don't work and 1 of them makes a profit. So it was very much providing value and giving the business owners an idea of actually how their business is operating. Quite often, a lot of business owners start with an idea, start with something. The finance is like a second thought, or just, oh, I need to file that to HMRC. I'll do that later.
So once you had realized that, okay, I've seen like a gap in the market, like I could really like put value here. How did you transition that into a business for yourself? Because that's a lot of work, right? There's like generating leads, going with people like, this is the value I can provide. When did that happen?
So I am very, very good at taking action. Like, if I see the vision, I will just run with it. And I don't even have a second thought about what could go wrong, because as long as I focus, it's only going to go, there might be complications, but it's only going to go that way. The way I see it. And it's the same with property. Like when I did my first property, I had every hurdle thrown at me. And I managed to get there in the end. It wasn't an easy task, but because I was so focused on getting there, I knew I was going to get there. So it all came about after a call with my web developer.
Yeah.
So he was a hotel manager for quite some time at 2 hotels in the Cotswolds.
Yeah.
And he then built a digital marketing agency with staff working for him all across the world. And he basically built this entire business where, you know, he was self-sufficient now. He didn't need that job, you know, and I could see that was something that I would like. I've always wanted a lifestyle sort of business where I was happy providing the value and happy providing the services, but also I wasn't tied to a location. And I love traveling. So literally since beginning of uni, I've wanted something that I can just take my laptop and travel. I'm very hardworking, but I don't want someone telling me, oh no, you've got to work these particular hours, because I'm a very hard worker anyway. I don't need to be told, oh, you're working a 9-to-5 job. It's just not me.
I'm interested to like explore your past a little bit more, because I'm seeing a theme here, a thread.
Okay.
The background. So you used to live by yourself in a trailer.
I guess that's one way of putting it.
Now, I can't imagine what that must have felt like. What was going through your heart? What was going through your mind during that time, if you don't mind me asking? Because everything I've seen about you so far tells me resilience.
Yeah.
Hard working.
Yeah.
Action taker. But that can't have always been the case. Where is the source of that?
I don't think it was so much the caravan. I loved my time in the caravan. I really, really loved it. It was the first place that I felt like it was mine and that I had control of.
Wow.
And I think it was more, I'm not sure whether it's just to do with control, but more like I'm calling the shots for the first time. Like, you know, when you're a child, you don't really have a lot of control. And technically, I was still a child at this point.
Yeah.
You don't really have a lot. And it's always like the adults telling you what to do. But I was like, I don't want that. I want this. And
were you always like that, even when you were younger, that you wanted that independence? Or was it?
I don't know. I think maybe it's come from, it wasn't really a stable home in the sense of there was no father figure there.
Yeah.
I didn't really see that as an issue until I started property. And then people are then, because I'm raising investment. Like I think in 2 years I'd raised over a 250k investment and I was 21. So, and I bought my first house at 21 as well. So I didn't realize at the time that was an issue. It was more my teenage years that were like my mum and I would get into fights quite often, and not just verbal fights. Like there was it wasn't really a good time. And then I remember at school as well, I'm not very good at separating like business and personal. So I would, and not saying that school was a business, but I would also bring the home stuff into school.
That's extraordinary. You bought your first house at 21. You raised 250,000 by the age of 21. Most people would look at that and think that's not what an average 21-year-old is getting up to. So what was going through your head at that time to have thought, 250k, I'm on it? I'm imagining, and maybe you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining the people who you were working with were probably not like you in any way.
No.
So what were they like, and what were the kind of challenges you were facing?
I always knew I was a bit different because I've never had tons and tons of friends, and I've always found it difficult. I get on with everybody. I've always found it difficult to make like really deep, meaningful friendships, because I don't really have too much in common with people my own age group, and typically the people I would get along with are a lot older than me. So like with my investors, a lot of them are a lot older than me, and I don't really see some of them as investors, but more like friends and family and that kind of thing, just because we got on so well. But I think definitely making friends has been difficult, or at least meaningful, deep friendships, like surface level, fine with, but actually deep, meaningful conversations and things like that, because people don't really understand like where I've come from, or they do, but they'd go out partying, that kind of thing. Whereas I'm a bit more like, I want to be at home. Like, I want to go to bed at a certain time so I can wake up in the morning.
And what kind of values do you look for in people?
I think understanding, non-judgment. I don't really judge people because I know where I came from, and everyone's got a different path and a different story to tell, and you can learn something with everybody. I'm very family driven actually as well. Which is surprising considering where I came from. But yeah, so I'm very family driven. And that's really how I met Suraj as well, because we had the same values. Even though we come from different backgrounds, we had very similar values. Yeah.
So you'd say those values have carried through into your business?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that the sort of set of criteria you have when you're hiring people? What do you look for when you're hiring for someone?
When I hire someone, ultimately, I want to be hiring people at roles better than I can do myself. So the way I've got my business at the moment, and it will change over time, but the way I've got it at the moment is I pretty much oversee everything. And then I've got, there's a team of the 6 bookkeepers, and they all assigned a couple of clients each, but they know their business inside and out. And as do I, which is where I'm going to be the bottleneck. I'm probably already the bottleneck, but it's definitely going to get worse as we keep going. So we both know the business inside now. They all predominantly do the work, and then I'll oversee it all.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm hiring, the roles that I offer are roles that I would like myself. So there's no set times. As long as the work is getting done, that's really the minimum. A lot of the staff that we have all have families, they have children young, they might need to go into school, they might need to go to the hospital, whatever, and the work is kind of around their lifestyle. Ultimately their lifestyle should come first, as long as the bookkeeping is done to a good standard. That's really the only thing. Now in an interview, it's difficult to judge without seeing their work first. So last year I hired a lot of people, and unfortunately we have to let go of a lot of people as well, because either they weren't taking the role seriously, because it is a very flexible role.
Yeah.
And what I learned was, okay, you can hire somebody, but you're not going to know what they're like until you put them to the test. So then more recently I realized, okay, what am I struggling with in the business? One of the things is we have a lot of property clients, so a lot of property developers, where they buy property and rent them out. Now, one of the bottlenecks was I was the only one that could record these purchases. But as we grow and grow and grow, I can't record property purchases for all the clients. So I needed to understand, okay, can you record a property purchase? And in their interview, they might say yes. But until I've actually put that to the test, then I'm not going to know. So we've created like a small test now where, okay, you've got like bank reconciliations, that kind of thing. But there's also a test to record a property purchase. And it's a very kind of, I'd say it's probably about a half an hour test where I can give them a dummy 0 access, and then I can go in and see what they've done.
So have you integrated that as part of your interview process?
Yeah.
Or is it more of a probation period you'll give?
No, that is part of the interview process now. It never used to be, but it is now, just because I'm not, like, I want to hire everybody. Like, if I see a few good people, I'm then not very good at making the decision, oh, this person's better than that person.
Right.
I'm really bad at that. So, but then this will filter that out.
I see there's a common theme right now. So you've started off with, you've got these values, right?
Yeah.
And you like to see those values with the people around you and within your business. And one of them seems to be the flexibility and independence. Like, you don't mind if they're not working at 9 o'clock in the morning or 5 p.m. in the evening, as long as their work is done at a reasonable time frame, then you're okay with that.
Exactly.
And that comes in handy with working from home, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is like a bit international. But I find your hiring process really interesting, because what does this test consist of? Is it bookkeeping in general with like dummy numbers?
So first thing, I will normally write a bit of a description about what I want.
Yeah.
Put that in the ChatGPT so it can word it all properly for me. And then I'll put that onto a few different websites. So maybe like online jobs or Indeed or, a few different places. And then the interview, the candidates will start coming through. And on the first part of that, so as part of my description, I will then put 5 questions. Originally, when I started this, I just used to put one question and it used to say, what is your favourite quote? So if they didn't answer the question, I knew that they didn't take the role seriously because they haven't even been bothered to read the job description. Now I tend to put about 5 questions, actually. One of them is still, what's your favourite quote? Because that just gives a bit of personality. But then it might be like, okay, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, Z. Tell me, okay, can you record a property purchase and give me an example of the journal that you would do to record this purchase. Right. So I've got a bit of an idea about their ability, but very, very small. Because they can easily just go on ChatGPT, they'll fill in this question for me.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I've seen that, like, ChatGPT answers with the double dashes on it, so you can kind of tell. So I don't actually know their ability until I've given them this test. And they can't really put that test into ChatGPT.
That's quite in line with the way AI is going anyways, because if you give a sort of assignment, it doesn't matter if you're using AI or not. It matters about how much you understand what you're doing and if it's enabling you to do much better work, right?
Yeah. Like, I know my staff use ChatGPT. I use it every single day, multiple times a day, and even multiple AIs. So I don't really mind about that, but they need to understand what's happening in order to know if it's wrong or not or how to fix it. So there would be the 5 questions. Then if they've answered all 5, if I'm hiring some roles abroad, so for example in the Philippines, you can have onlinejobs.ph, and the way it works is they can apply with a certain amount of credits. I think they get like 30 credits a day. So if someone's applied with 1 credit, the likelihood of them actually reading the job description and really caring about that role is quite low. Whereas if someone applies with like 10, 15, 20 points, they really want this role. So they're going to be more inclined to like really work hard for it. So that's another little strategy that I use. So I do the questions, how many points they've applied. I will read a bit about their background. And then from that point, I'll then know who to interview. And then if they've impressed me in the interview, then I'll give them this bit of a test.
Let's imagine there is someone in the audience who is looking to hire somebody from the Philippines. What should they not do?
What should they not do? Hire on emotion. I've done that in the past.
Can you give an example of what that looks like? Like somebody has a really compelling story and you feel inclined to give them the job?
Not so much the story, because we don't really talk too much about that. The first question I'll always say is, okay, tell me a bit about yourself. What hobbies do you enjoy? Before I even go into any work, just to make them feel relaxed. Because especially in an interview situation, I would feel quite stressed. So you want to relax. But then let's say, I don't know. Well, one of the mistakes that I made was I sent an email to somebody saying, I'd like to schedule you for an interview for this time and date. And they never got back to me until after that time and date. And then stupidly, I was thinking, like, their resume looks very, very good. So I was like, let me give them a chance. And they turned up and I think I hired them, but then they wouldn't meet the deadlines. They weren't very good to communicate with. Whereas the ones that have responded straight away, they're the ones that have done the best. Because to me as well, you don't have to have everything perfect. As long as you're not making the same mistakes over and over and over again, I'm more than happy to kind of teach and kind of share the screen, like just jump on a screen call, let's just go through this, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what are your bottlenecks, right, with the hiring process?
So initially, my job description wasn't targeted enough. So I kid you not, I had over 200 applicants. And working through those applicants was a nightmare because there's so many. And I'm already trying to run a business on top of now reading through these 200 applications. So that was a bit of a bottleneck. Whereas now, it's a lot more targeted. So actually, the number of interviews I do isn't like 20 or 30. It's like maybe 2 or 3 now because of the job description, and it's very targeted.
So you think the description has reduced the amount of people applying for the job to begin with?
Yeah, and also the questions. So I can rule out people that are not serious by are those 5 questions answered.
Right. So
that question,
you still have the same volume of people applying, but the actual candidates that you are considering for the job has shrunk.
I'd say even less people, because originally it was very, very broad because I didn't know what I needed.
Right.
So it was very broad, whereas now I know exactly what I need. So for this role, I know X, Y, Z because I've hired somebody that said they're a good bookkeeper, but they don't know how to record property purchases, and they don't know how to check this or check this, check this. So now it's a lot more targeted, and I can say, look, you need to be able to do this. You need to be able to do this, this, this. And it's going to put off people that don't know how to do that. Where rather than just saying, oh, yeah, I need a bookkeeper. You know, that kind of thing. And then you've got the questions, along with how many points they applied for. And then if they get through to the interview, then I can do it on a bit of a personality thing. But I'd say as well, before, I've also hired people because I thought I got on with them well on an interview. Where it's actually, as long as I generally get on with them, they don't need to be my best friend or anything like that. They just need to be able to do the job better than I can. So I can focus on my strengths rather than, you know, trying to be good at everything.
Right. What does the future of your practice look like? Where do you want to take it?
Oh, I really want to grow it. So our first year, so we've been training for just over a year. And we did just under 90k in our first year, which I'm really, really proud of.
Bearing in mind, most businesses don't turn a profit.
Yeah. I'm really happy about that. I've learnt a lot though, but I'd say I'm very quick to adapt, and I'll very quickly realize what's not working, depending on like, okay, am I feeling bogged down with a million jobs to do right now? If so, we either need to hire somebody to fix those bits, or we need to change our processes or something.
Just on that, you've in your first year you did 90k in turnover. Now, was that a linear chart? As in, it just, or was there a moment that really things broke through for you?
Getting the first client was really challenging, and went through a lot of emotions because I really wanted my first client, but I was like, I was on Bark to start with, and I think Bark, like we found a lot of clients on Bark, but also Bark is very frustrating because you're competing against 4 other people. So there's 5 people that can apply for one job, and it's basically comes down to who's got the lowest price essentially. And we are not your typical bookkeeping firm. Like, we undersell ourselves by calling us bookkeepers because we're more of finance partners for SMEs, like small business, small medium businesses. Like, we're more like we do a full audit of their accounts, and quite often, even if they've come from a bookkeeper, a lot of it will actually be incorrect with little things. Like, for example, when you have a loan, the interest part of that loan needs to be recorded on the P&L rather than the balance sheet. And a lot of the time it's not. The same with, like, let's say there's on the balance sheet, there's like a wages payable account, which is when you run the payroll, the amount that gets paid to that, so let's say it's a director, right, goes into that account, and then when the director pays themselves, that will offset, and that will be 0 at the end of the month, or when they pay themselves. Quite often that's not the case when I've taken on a new client. So we're not really bookkeepers. When you think of bookkeeper, a lot of people think of data entry, and it's really not. Like, having a good bookkeeper can really save you money. Like, for example, even just being proactive about, okay, let's have a look at these subscriptions. So let's say you're spending $3,000 on subscriptions. You probably forgot about half of them. You can probably save $1,000 right there and then, like, if you're just reviewing them. Same with the assets. Like, if you haven't looked at the assets for a while, half of them you might not even have anymore. So you've inflated the assets. It's just about being proactive and really understanding the business. Same with sales. So, okay, let's say you've got 5 different products. Well, are all 5 doing well? Or, you know, do you want to maybe close one operation down and focus on the 4? With properties specifically, when you've got 1, 2, 3 properties, it's quite, I mean, I find it quite easy to know, okay, this property is doing this much, and then this property is doing X amount of month. And you can work out, okay, is each one profitable? But as you scale, let's say you get 10, 20, 30 properties, you're not going to know how profitable each one is until you split that up. Now, in Xero, you have something called tracking categories. So you can assign, like, you can create, let's say, 10 addresses for 10 properties, and you can assign each cost and each income to that property. So you can see it 10 separate P&Ls, essentially. Whereas if you have it all bunched together, you don't know how each one is performing. And it's just about understanding, okay, what is the business owner's goals as well? Like, do they want to sell it? Are they a startup and they want to sell? If so, you need to understand, okay, how can I best help that person?
So knowing that you had all this value, but you feel like the name sometimes undercuts that.
Yeah.
How was it? Like, take us through the journey of actually like getting all that clientele. So you got your first one. It was really difficult.
Yeah.
What next? What happened?
I got a few more on Bark, but one of the changing points was I'm still part of all these WhatsApp groups on property.
Yep.
And I still raise money for property and do projects now as well. And I remember putting a WhatsApp message in, like, I normally do all of the groups, like maybe 30, 40 of these groups at the same time. It's just saying, yep, I'm a bookkeeper specifically for property. Now I've kind of moved away just from property, and it's kind of more, I specialize in zero because that's what I really enjoy, rather than just doing property investors on their own. So, but at that time I was thinking, oh, okay, property background, I'll be really, really good for property investors.
Yeah.
And I remember putting a message in, and an accountant reached out to me, or actually somebody that I know from networking, who runs his own networking groups. He reached out to me saying, I think you should have a conversation with this person who is an accountant. And that accountant actually ended up being someone I'd already met 2 years prior when I was doing the property networking. So then we had a quick chat, and we were a really good fit for each other. He ran an accounting firm, and he had this client that had a lot of transactions. And what I'm finding with accountancy practices is they want to do the big ticket things at the end of the year, such as, filing the accounts, filing the taxes, giving you more of the tax advice, rather than doing the nitty gritty bookkeeping. Because actually, to do bookkeeping properly, you really do need to know that business inside and out. And let's say an accountancy firm has 200 to 1,000 clients, maybe even more. To know that many businesses and the detail you really need to be a good bookkeeper is very difficult for them. And I think this particular practice these accounts were really out of date by a couple of years. And he just needed someone to come in and just get all the bookkeeping up to date for him, and then he could spend his time on the more the higher value, high ticket
strategic
things.
work.
Exactly. Yeah. So so that was my first really big client, I'd say. And
that came through networking.
That actually happened 2 years prior. Yeah.
Wow.
Now that was in the property networking as well. Yeah.
I think, to be honest, in our own business, we're finding that networking conversations is just it's a case of trust building. And when you are networking, it's very easy to build trust, especially if it's in person, because it's very hard to be disingenuous and to basically be an unlikable person when you're with somebody in person. You can immediately suss out if you're on the same wavelength or not.
No trust.
It makes a huge difference, but on the flip side of it, it's obviously not scalable. You can't network
that
forever.
Was going to be my point.
Right?
Yeah.
Have you got a solution to that? Are you still?
Did you end up coming to that point where you realized networking wasn't doing it anymore?
So I think I realized this when I was more networking for investment. And when I got my first property, I had the offer accepted. I had no money in my bank. No money whatsoever. I was still in uni. So I had my student loans. I was very good at saving, and I was working as well as a waitress. But in order to actually get the investment, I was going networking 3 times a day, 4 times a day. So I'd be going to breakfast events, lunch events, dinner events.
Were you putting some of your own capital into the investment, or were you?
A little bit at the beginning, a little bit. But 5-10K gets swallowed up so quickly in the investment, really quickly. And the refurb just went from bad to worse at one point. I mean, I managed to do it in the end. But in order to actually get that refurb, that was no easy. It wasn't a straight line. I realized how tenacious you have to be, and working with builders, that was a whole different animal. Oh my
Did you
goodness.
decide to move away from focusing on property full time and into building your own business, specifically offering financial services, finance partnering with SME businesses for that reason, or was there another reason why you thought maybe I need to shift away from property and go into bookkeeping?
I wouldn't say I've shifted away. However, I wouldn't say I'm a very patient person. And when I say that, I want to go out and get 10 properties tomorrow. And nothing's going to stop me, right? But in order to do that, you do need capital. You do need the deposit at the bare minimum in your bank account. So you can raise money through investors for the refurb side of things. But just to meet the anti-money laundering checks with solicitors now, you need a bare minimum of the 25% deposit. And that's 25% for like straightforward buy-to-let, HMO, that kind of thing. Now, depending on whereabouts you're buying in the country, that could be 20k. So my lowest deposit has been 16k. But then that could be anywhere up to hundreds of thousands, depending on the purchase price. So property is very capital intense. And I did quit my job, and the idea was to go into property full time. But then I realised, okay, I've got a few properties that are sustaining a bare minimum lifestyle.
Yeah.
But how can I get more properties if I'm not making more money?
Yeah.
And I've always been kind of business inclined. And even at that point, I did actually get another job, a 9 to 5 as a finance business partner, to then get more money to go into property and also learn more about like finances and big corporations. And it was really in that job I realised, okay, I'm a finance business partner for this company. And that's really where you're doing the finances, but you're explaining financial terms to non-financial people in operations.
Yep.
And that's when I realised, hang on a minute, we're doing it for these big companies. Small, medium companies need this, and we're not doing this. Not enough people are doing this.
Yeah.
They just go to their accountant at the end of the year, and they're like, yeah, okay, file the taxes. They have no kind of evidence of what's happened throughout the year. And let's say something happens on 1 month in, they're not going to realise, oh, they could have saved tax 11 months ago, until your accountant tells you at the end of the year. And that's if you have a very proactive accountant in the first place. Some people I've spoken to, they'll just file the accounts and just, that's it, done, get the money, move on to the next one. And I kind of feel like small, medium businesses do need the hand-holding.
What would that onboarding look like for a small, medium business? Let's say they want to take you on and say, I really need a fantastic bookkeeper.
Yeah.
How would you onboard them?
Firstly, the first thing I try and do is I try and get access to their Xero account, even if it's read-only, just to understand what's happening so far.
And what are you looking for?
Firstly, I'd go into the balance sheet.
Yep.
And, okay, are there any negative loans? That's a red flag straight away.
Right.
How much is in the holding account? So like, for example, the wages payable I mentioned earlier? So that should be 0 unless there's 1 month of payments outstanding. Because let's say you've run the payroll on the 30th of April, but you haven't paid everyone until the 1st of May. Therefore, at the 30th of April, that money is still going to be outstanding because you kind of work in months, right? So how much is outstanding on that? So if it's a big figure and there's only one person on the payroll, then you're like, okay, red flag.
Why would that be a red flag?
So let's say you're a director paying yourself £12,570, which is your personal allowance, and then they just top it up with dividends. So at the moment, with that £12,570, that means your salary, if it's a normal director, is about £1,047, right? So I would expect to see £1,047 in that account, or 0 if they've already paid themselves. So now, if it's suddenly a higher amount, well, why is that? And that's something that I would need to investigate. It might be correct. It might be that, they're waiting, they've just registered with HMRC, and that they're actually waiting to get all of their documents through, like all of their references, office references, all of that kind of thing, to actually put it through. Or it might be that actually it hasn't been recorded properly. So either they haven't put the payroll summaries in, that might happen sometimes. If they do their payroll on a different software, then you're going to have to do a manual journal each month to record that. If you do it through Xero, as long as you've set it up correctly and you've mapped it to the right places, the right nominals, then that'll all go through correctly. Maybe it's that when they've paid themselves, the person doing the bookkeeping didn't realise it was a salary and they've just put it to a director's loan account. It's a lot of different checks, and depending on the business as well, right? But a lot of different checks I would just do. And up until now, I've kind of had all this in my head. Whereas now I've started doing SOPs so I can really scale the business. Because that was a big bottleneck. I would be the one saying to the staff, right, there's this. Whereas now, and actually last week I sent all of these SOPs out to be like, okay, when you're checking each other's work, this is what you need to be looking for. And then I can kind of teach more, and that's how we can grow, because otherwise I'm just going to be the bottleneck.
So when you're checking the Xero account, that's when you also figure out how far behind the client is, and you base your pricing. The next stage of the onboarding process, which is pricing, would be based on checking the Xero account.
I mean, sometimes I'll ask on the phone, okay, whereabouts is your bookkeeping? And they will say, it's all up to date. And then I'll look in, and they might be up to date, i.e. the bank is reconciled, but actually do we have the complete picture?
Right.
It might be that the assets are not recorded in Xero, or they're not registered in Xero, which then means we have to do manual journals instead of just clicking one button to run the depreciation, things like that. So I'd kind of look at all of this. It might be that I don't know, things are mapping to the wrong account, or it could be any number of things really. But that's step one. I would try and get access to their Xero.
Yeah.
Have a bit of a look through myself, understand where it's actually at, and put together a to-do list of what would need to be done. Then I would put this to the client and say, like, this is what needs to be done. If they don't do that and they don't give me access, then I'd normally price it on a per hour basis.
Yep.
We normally charge about £30 an hour, which I think is really good considering what we do.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of the going rate for your average kind of bookkeeper at the moment. So we would do that. And then we'd also, the problem with per hour though, is you can rack up those hours really quickly if you just take on a new client that's very far behind.
What would be far behind?
Depending on how big the business is. If it's a business with just a couple of transactions a month, I'm not really too worried. If it's a business with, they could have 50 transactions a day, 100 transactions a day, then even just 2-3 months might be quite a lot behind. Others might be like, they might be 2 years behind. We've had that before. I think the biggest one we've done, the biggest catch-up bookkeeping we've done is 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah. Wow. You'd be surprised.
So in that scenario, how would a business run having not looked at their finance properly for the last 3 years? How does that even happen?
They would have struggled. Yeah. And this is the thing, people start businesses without knowing much about finances.
Yeah.
And they just think, okay, I'll just give it to my accountant at the end of the year to file the accounts.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is they have no clarity throughout the year, or 3 years in this case. So they might have an understanding of how it is in their head.
Yeah.
But let's say they want to scale. They can't scale without having it in front of them and be like, okay.
So if you're a managing director of a new startup, let's say you've been going strong for the last 11 months.
Yeah.
It's now coming to the 12th month and you're basically bricking it and thinking, I have no idea about my financial situation. I don't know how much money I've spent, how much money I've earned. All I know is that I'm profitable. What would you recommend to them?
They need to get their finances in order first.
What would they look for? What should they look for?
So firstly, they need to actually do the bookkeeping. So I would definitely recommend Xero as an accounting software.
Yeah.
So firstly, get onto an accounting software.
Yep.
And especially with the UK now, with making tax digital, where sole traders and landlords earning more than 50k need to file quarterly anyway.
Yep.
And let's say you're making over 90k, you need to be registered for VAT.
Yep.
You need to submit that through an accounting software.
Yep.
It's not good enough anymore just to have bookkeeping done on Excel.
Yep.
You need it to be on an accounting software. Also, you can have some really cool reports on Xero, so you can then have a better understanding of how the business is doing.
Yep.
So say step one is doing the bookkeeping so you can actually understand where you are today.
Yep.
And then you can, based on that, you can then see, okay, where do you want to go in the future? Because you might know it's profitable, but going back to, let's say you've got 5 properties, well, which one's doing the best? Is it the area? Is it the strategy? And if, specifically buy-to-lets with the interest rates going up, so one of those properties now, if you've just refinanced onto a higher mortgage, it might not be profitable anymore per month. You might be losing cash flow. So then you might want to look, do I want to try a different strategy? Do I want to rent it to the council? Do I want to do Airbnb or service accommodation? Then you have those options because you have the clarity on where you are today. Then you can make those decisions on how you want to move forward. You might even want to sell it and buy something in a different area, or do something that's a bit more profitable.
From the vast majority of people who will be watching this are people who run very similar practices to yourself. Now, what's the one area of your own business over the last year that you feel, if you could go back to the start, what would you recommend to Courtney from 1 year ago? What would you tell her and say, avoid doing this?
One of the biggest mistakes that I made was one of my first clients. I priced it on a per hour basis. And this client needed, I think it was about two years catch up. And I'm very conscientious and I want everything perfect, right? But before I be like, right, these books are finished, I'm happy with them. And I basically just kept going for these 2 years and basically got everything. And I was like really happy. Went to the client, jumped on a screen call with her, and I talked her through everything. I made sure that what she had in her head of how the business is doing in her head was actually matched in Xero. Because it might be that I haven't done something correctly because I didn't have the insider operations knowledge. So anyway, did all of that. She was very, very happy. And then at the end, after I worked like flat out for basically 2 months with my team, getting these accounts done and sorted, I dropped to the bill.
And then?
Well, the problem with this is a big bill. This is like, I can't remember, maybe like 3-4 grand or something. One bill, 3-4 grand in bookkeeping. And then she stopped replying to my messages and my calls. She did pay eventually, and she's still a client today. But that was a big learning for me, because actually looking back, if it was me, I would want to be told up front. You can't really say, oh, it's going to take this many hours, because you could be opening a can of worms with one account, like one single account.
The question that I have for you is pricing. So I know a lot of accountants at the moment, a lot of bookkeepers really struggle with pricing. And it usually comes with experience, right?
Yeah.
But there is no like formal SOP or mathematical equation that you can use to like generate, this is how much you should charge per month, or depending on the accounts.
Yeah.
So you've been in the business now for a year. You've talked about your sort of biggest pain point that you went through. What would be your advice when it comes to pricing?
My advice? Oh gosh. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out myself, and being completely honest.
Let's flip it then. So not what you want to do, but what you definitely won't do from now on.
I won't finish the entire job and then drop the bill at the end.
That's a great lesson.
So now I'm learning. So if it's a per hour, which I found it easier to price per hour at the start. The end goal is to have everybody on fixed prices, which is taken through Go Cardless now. So that works really well for us. But one of the other mistakes I made is we gave someone a fixed price of, it was about £300 a month, because they said, okay, they've got this amount of transactions. I quickly saw Xero with them on the call with me. They gave me like screen share access. I saw that there was about 50 transactions on Reconcile, something like that. And I was like, okay, it's going to be £300 a month, because all I was told is we just need this reconciling. And at that time, I could only see one bank account with 50 unreconciled transactions. She was saying, yep, that's all it is. I got full access, and then realised that they've actually moved from a different accounting software. So I'd probably say 75% of the info was not even in Xero. So I've priced based on that number of transactions, which is completely wrong. And this is why I'm also hesitant to start straight away on a fixed basis. That's what I would prefer. But I found it really difficult, and actually then I'm at a loss when we take on a client and we just charge them per hour. So sorry, it was a fixed price. So when I have a new client come to me, normally what I'll say now, I found the easiest and just quickest thing to say, it's probably not the best thing right now, but is a per hour for the first 1 to 2 months. And I found after 2 months, I've managed to catch everything up. And then that third month will kind of be, okay, this is actually how much work is included each month. So...
And what software are you using to record the hours?
We use Clockify. So Clockify, the reason I love that is because it's a free software up to a certain point, and we use it all the time. We haven't broken that ceiling yet. I think it's a really great piece of software, really good support if you need it as well. So yeah, I would 100% recommend that. And it works really well for anyone working from home, and then they just record their hours. And I've never been in a dispute with my staff about how many hours they've worked. I've been quite trusting in that sense, because you can kind of tell, like, if they're doing more than what they're usually doing, or less, or anything like that.
But that's because you've been making the hard choices to have the easy sort of outcome at the moment. You have to be very specific who you want in your team. But okay, so we've spoken about the quote now, so the pricing. We did speak about the advice, and then the initial sort of contact, which is with Xero. So the next one is engagement letters. And creating your client profile. Any bottlenecks with that?
The bottleneck was the timing of me doing it myself. So I remember again, right at the beginning, we took on a client, and it was just a conversation with me on the phone, really, with her. So I managed to get some of the information. And I remember giving the information that I had to one of my bookkeepers, and she really struggled because she didn't know the industry the client was in. She didn't really know too much about the client. And that was like partly on me. I didn't get enough information. But again, I was quite young in the business. Like, I didn't really know what I needed to obtain. So it was actually the bookkeeper that said to me, oh, it'd be really cool if we actually had a Google form showing like what industry they're in, a bit more information, who the key suppliers, that kind of thing. And then she put that together for me, which now we've refined, and it's now part of the process. Engagement letters, it's kind of changed over time. I'm quite happy with the one we have at the moment. But again, it was me. I had to change it. Every time a different price, I'd change the client's address. And this onboarding process, because it was sat with me and I've got a million things to do, it would always kind of be the last thing because I didn't really enjoy it. Whereas now what we have is the pricing, we've got a bit of a calculator. So if we know what's exactly involved, i.e. they've given me access to Xero and I can see how many transactions a month because they've got some history rather than them just being brand new to business. Let's say they've got a year's history. I can then see what the average transactions number is per month. I can then put all of that into like a calculator and roughly work out, okay, either how many hours it's going to take or give them a fixed price. Now what we've got is like an onboarding spreadsheet, like master sheets, where we've got all the pricing. You can put the client in. Do we have access to Xero? Yes, no. If no, it then sends them instructions on an email automatically of how to get that, rather than me sending that email. We've already got the templates. So I just have to click one button in Xero.
Yeah, that's probably because of Accounting OS.
Definitely. You guys have been incredible. So my onboarding system used to take about 2 weeks. Yeah, which is quite long. Now
the one that you have now, so you've just recently onboarded a client with that system. How long did it take end to end?
Like seconds. Like I'd say, okay, probably. I think they did half of it one night in like a few minutes, and then they finished it the next morning in like a few minutes.
Yeah.
So they did kind of like the onboarding, Google form and everything.
And how long did it take you?
Oh, I just had to put their email and name it and click go.
So basically, with this onboarding process, what happens is she presses go, and then automatically a quote gets sent out with a yes or no button. Yeah. And then after that, a Google form goes out to get all the client information, so you don't have to remember everything on the phone. After that, it would be the engagement letter, automatically personalized.
Yeah.
It's just a shameless plug, isn't it?
It literally
shameless
is.
Plug for our fantastic software.
It's so good. It's so good.
To be honest, we see it again and again. It's not like with every single client, we know onboarding is a pain. We have yet to come across a single director who has said, yeah, onboarding, I've got it nailed on. Exactly. No one has got it nailed on. It's really painful. And the reason being is that it's one of the few processes that so obviously connects multiple pieces of software together, and often is just in the director's head, especially if you're a small and medium-sized business. You're not expected, you're describing SOPs, even as somebody who's been in the business for 1 year, positive £90,000 in turnover. For you to be talking about SOPs now, you're probably about 4 years ahead of the game. There are businesses who have been in the who've been running for 5 years and whose SOPs are half done. It's a pain, and onboarding is the one that feels like it's the least. It's not really a priority in the sense that it's not so urgent, but it's painful enough for you to be thinking about it. It's definitely a massive pain point.
I think we've really realized it's the visibility and the time, right? So the visibility is like nobody in the team knows where this client is. You know that, okay, you've accepted the client, that the invoice needs to go out and the contracts need to be signed, but there's no visibility.
And you're not getting paid for it.
You
can't charge someone and say, yep, your onboarding is going to cost £100. It's not. You can't do that to most people. It's not standard practice in accounting or bookkeeping.
But this has been a game changer. Onboarding, because I used to dread it. I used to put it on my list and be like, oh. But like, I'd much rather be doing it, like the bookkeeping, the checking, like doing the high level stuff. Like I might be recording a property, or be like, okay, this is what actually brings in the money. Onboarding, oh my goodness.
Have you invoiced that client?
Yes. So what we do now, so one of the issues we had originally is we would charge after the work, but then they might not pay. And you've done all this time. So we've not only spent time, I'm also paying my staff per hour for the hours that they've worked on this before the client has paid us. And that then puts me at a disadvantage.
That's a cash flow issue. You don't want to be spending money that you haven't got from a client.
Now what we do though is we get X amount up front. So if it's per hour, we will say it's 10 hours up front. So if it's £30 an hour, we'll be like, okay, £300 up front, and that gets paid before we even start. If it's a fixed amount, so let's say we're doing a catch up and it was very easy to price. So like we did one client, it was very easy to say, okay, this is going to be £150 a month and they're 23 months behind. So 150 times 23, and we'd say that much. But then we've also done like, if they can't pay that much up front, then we split that over 12 months and it just gets added to their normal £150 package. But it really depends. Like we've got clients like paying up to $3,000. We've got clients paying £60 if they've just got like one property. We've got all different, but it's about, okay, seeing where they are. I think one of the issues that I'm facing, and probably a lot of the audience might be as well, or maybe it's just me, is more of the mindset of charging a big amount of money for bookkeeping. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be a couple of £100, and most businesses are probably between that, you know, 300 to 700 mark, I'd say. But then the clients that have a lot of transactions and a lot of different complexities. So like, for example, we've got a client that were a bit behind with their bookkeeping, and even the bookkeeping that had been done was like, it wasn't correct, and we've spent a long time. They've got investors, so like you've got investors with just on a loan agreement with a percentage per month, and then they've also got equity investors. So we need to make sure that that's all recorded correctly and it matches the documentation we also have, which it didn't before, but it took a long time to get that kind of fixed. And then they're also turning over a lot of transactions as well. So these sort of clients pay us between £2,000 to £3,000 a month just for the, you know, their bookkeeping. And I say just their bookkeeping. We do a lot of work for them.
Yeah.
But it's just to get out of that mindset of, oh yeah, your amount is going to be £2,000 straight off the bat. I find that really hard. And I think
you know, when you don't do yourself justice, you will probably attract the wrong type of client.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. And I have done that in the past. So we had a client. He had 8 property companies with us, and there was investors coming into one company and going into different companies. It was all a mess. Basically, the investor invested in one company, it should stay there. This was a complete mess. And we managed to get it to a point where I was then confident to go onto a call. And bearing in mind, the first time we could take on a client, I'm not expecting all my bookkeeping to be 100% perfect. Because what I do then is I get it to a point where I'm confident I can explain things. And then I jump on a video call and I go through it. Oh, is this what you're expecting to see? No, if not, why not? Or let's say you've got 5 investors. Okay, I've got 120k for this investor. Is that correct? Yes, no, why not? It might be that, okay, they've been paid back personally, but I don't have personal bank statements. I only have company bank statements. So it's about understanding all of this. And yeah, I think just piecing it all together, or even like just starting with that big price straight off. So what I do to try and mask that is a per hour pricing to start with.
It seems like it's been the right fit for your business so far.
Yeah,
because we've been through the journey with you when you've been deciding how to do your pricing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this per hour seems like a good way to first like let your client know like this is how much work it takes and see the value of your work at the same time of them getting comfortable with knowing the pricing.
Yeah.
It's probably a strategy that we would deploy ourselves, and to be honest, it's probably where we should wrap up the conversation because we're almost at time. But I'm finding more and more that as much as you are like a client is interviewing you, it actually should be the case in the opposite. You are interviewing them, and you wouldn't want to go into an arrangement where they are paying you monthly and you've agreed to work for them. Whereas if you say, hey, look, we'll do hourly for the first month, let's just see how it goes. It gives both parties an opportunity to basically vet each other, make sure you're happy. And we've been in an instance where we had an opportunity, we decided to turn it down because we didn't like the director. We felt like actually there isn't a good vibe here. We didn't decide to do the hourly price, and maybe that could have been something we explored. But before we even went into that arrangement, we're like, this can't happen. Something is not right here. And maybe that's something that
I think you're
could probably work in your favor, because it might be something to do with like the pricing, but also maybe the hourly pricing is just your way of knowing if this client is even worth your time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very grateful that at the moment, our clientele, the group that we have, they're all very grateful, and they know that they can just let me do the bookkeeping and it's all going to be taken care of. And I'm very proactive to come to them. In the past, what I've had is where they haven't realized the value of our bookkeeping. I don't know why, for whatever reason, I'm not sure. And then it hasn't worked out. We just weren't a good fit for each other. And I'm not happy if they don't feel like they value our time or our services. I would rather not have them as a client, because I'm quite conscientious about the work we do. And I know that our entire client portfolio right now, they are so grateful for us, and I am also very grateful for them. And maybe that's just what I've manifested. But I've also had clients in the past where we've onboarded them, we've done some work for them, and I could just tell it wasn't a good fit, but we kind of wanted the client because we were new and, you know, we wanted to like really grow and things, but it just wasn't a good fit.
Let's wrap up on a final question. I have my final question, then you can ask your final question. Let's imagine you're speaking with, I don't know, let's call him Mike. He's been running his business for about 2.5 years. What would be, let's imagine he's feeling a bit overwhelmed, a bit stressed out. He doesn't really know his financial situation. What would be the single most valuable thing he could do to get himself out of that situation?
Either do the bookkeeping himself, or what I would actually recommend more is get a good bookkeeper. And when I say a good bookkeeper...
And what would be the outcome of having that bookkeeper? How is he going to feel?
So by the end of that bookkeeper catching up all the work and getting it to the exact financial position he's in today, he is then aware of what position his business is actually in. Without having the bookkeeping, you don't know what position your business is in. It could be making money in your head, but actually losing money. It could be that...
So there's a huge stress off his shoulders.
Yeah. But at least having that clarity, you can now make decisions to move the business forward.
Yeah.
Or you can take the business in whichever direction you want to go in now.
Yeah.
But without that clarity, you're literally just running the business blind.
Yeah.
And I almost argue you're not even running the business at that point. You might know the operations, but a big part of business is the finances, whether you like it or not.
So you built a job, not a machine that can run without you. It's not an asset.
Yeah. And I think one thing I've seen a lot is people are scared to look at their numbers of... They don't want to know how bad it is a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So they might people start a business to have freedom, and then they get themselves into this cycle, which, I mean, I'm bad for it myself. I just work. And you think, oh yeah, I want a lifestyle business. Oh my God. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. What about you?
My question is, what would you say to other business owners who have just started out? They've got their first couple of clients, other bookkeepers. What would be your advice for them?
I'd say... reflect, and you really need to understand the goals of your business. Do you want to be a one-man band where you take your laptop on holiday whenever you like, you've got little overheads, it's just you and yourself? Or do you want to grow it into a team? What do you want your business to look like, and what do you want your goals to look like, and then work backwards? If you want to grow it into this massive business, are you comfortable working in the business every single day and, sacrificing then maybe even relationships, sacrificing holidays, that kind of thing? I think without knowing your end point, or it doesn't even have to be an end point, but at least having your goals, or what is the point of having this business for you, you then can't make the necessary decisions to get there. And I think that's really important. And a lot of people don't think about this, because most people that start a business, it's not accidental. They start because they don't like their job, or they don't like their boss, or anything like that, right? And they want this freedom, but then they forget about why they started, and they just find themselves in another hamster wheel going round and round and round.
Yeah.
And then they are sacrificing relationships without realizing. They are sacrificing those holidays that they thought they would be on all the time, in Thailand on the beaches or something, So I think knowing what your goals are, and reminding yourself of that, because it's very easy to forget about that when you're really in it. When you're in the business, you really kind of forget about that. Yeah.
Courtney,
Okay.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.